think the more famous you are, the more you are going to be copied. And a lot of actors don't copy your brand name, but copy everything else around it. So the whole look and feel of your packaging. And we get that a lot as a brand-led company, if you will.
When you think about maybe your top 3 strategies to sort of fight online fraud, are there 2, 3 things that come to mind?
Prioritization. So we do have to prioritize really well, and we have to pick our battles. You can't go after everything. You have to choose the right tech. As the online actors get more and more sophisticated, global online brand enforcement is the cornerstone of what we do in enforcement in general. Detect, investigate, and stop infringements at a large scale is what it is all about, and where we can achieve the highest impact. We should not be afraid to take aggressive action where needed.
Bence, thank you for joining us today. It's wonderful to have you as our guest on our podcast.
Thank you, Daniel. Welcome, everybody. I'm really happy to be here with you today and looking forward to the podcast.
Well, so to maybe warm us up, Bence, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, when you think about pineapple on a pizza, is that something you would ever think is an official item to go on top of a pizza or not?
That's a hard question, Daniel, to start with. It's a tricky one, but I have an answer. As a child, the answer was absolutely yes, but as an adult, I would rather not.
Very, very good. But you have done it. That's the key thing.
Exactly,
right?
It's an admission, but also a promise to do better going forward.
When I think about experiences that happen to all of us in life, sometimes there's this one experience that sticks with you as sort of a funny experience that happened to you. And when you're having a beer with your friends, you sort of tell this story, whether it was at work or whatever. Is there one of those stories that sort of resonate for you?
Yes, sure, Daniel. I think some of the most joyful memories for me revolve around rap music or hip hop music, surprisingly or not. I myself am a songwriter as well as a rapper, as a hobby of mine. And we used to have these events with the Hungarian IP Association back in the day, where they had karaoke nights almost every single time. And I was a regular participant, and I enjoyed those moments very much. More recently, with my current job at Mars, I wrote a rap song during COVID, about COVID, surprisingly, and I won internal awards for that within the legal team as one of the funniest and most creative pieces that was shared during a difficult time for everybody.
Well, listen, I wish we could have a few segments from your COVID rap song just to sort of hear the rap. I don't know if you need background music or not, but that would be awesome one day, if not today.
One day, maybe. I still have to think about it. I haven't listened to it in a long while, but perhaps that's a good thing.
All right, we'll get together one time when you give me the COVID rap. What did you want to be when you grew up, when you were a young man? What was your thoughts on what you'd want to be when you grew up?
Good question. You always grow, don't you? You always try and develop. I think as a child, I wanted to be a footballer, as we say in Europe, a soccer player, as you would call it in the US. That didn't work out, obviously. I wasn't talented enough. And then I also wanted to be a rap artist, which also didn't work out. Clearly, I'm not good enough in that. And then nowadays, my dream is to become a stand-up comedian, which probably I'm also not good enough at. So I will probably stick with law and IP law.
Now I have 2 things that have to happen. Next time I'm in London, I want to come to one of your stand-up concerts and then sort of hear the COVID rap song. How did you decide on this profession, like in that concept of footballer, stand-up comedian, rapper? When did you, position yourself into the, your profession as an IP lawyer? When was that process, sort of happened to you?
I think it happened during law school as well as after law school. And you might ask, how did I end up in law school? But great question. I wouldn't do it again. for sure. But since I did it, I might as well make some kind of a success of it. And as a young lawyer with an opportunity to join an IP law firm back in Budapest, Hungary, it felt like a logical choice to make. It felt like an area that was always interesting for me within law, and it still is interesting. So I suppose within law, intellectual property is something that I was always excited about. And when the opportunity presented itself, I did not hesitate to join that IP law firm, and then the rest is history, really.
And when you think about that, as you got into IP law, etc., obviously you made a couple transitions. How did you take that transition as a lawyer, as an IP lawyer, working for an IP firm, and then go in house, as an example, into Mars? What was that transition all about, and how come you were ready at that particular point to sort of move in house as opposed to external?
I think there are several factors there, and it's also worth mentioning that I relocated to the UK from Hungary when I made that move from private practice to in-house. So I think that with that, it became even bigger a move, if that makes sense. And I did want to become an in-house lawyer. However, I did not expect that this would be in the UK, which was a fantastic opportunity at the time that I really wanted to grab. What is really good about in-house is how close you are to business, how close you are to decision making, how much better you understand projects from the very beginning until the end. The value that you add to the business is, for me, is much more than from an external standpoint.
Since making that move to both the UK and going in-house with Mars, and maybe for those people on the listening to our podcast today who may not be familiar with the company Mars, if you could maybe just share a little bit about what the company does, where you're based, how many different locations Mars operates around the world. Maybe the people will find that quite interesting.
Sure, absolutely. Happy to speak about that. Mars has three major business segments: snacking, pet care, and food. And it is essentially a major global manufacturer with several well-known brands such as M&M's, Snickers, Twix, Pedigree, Whiskas, Royal Canin, Ben's Original, Dolmio. It's the whole spectrum, and it's one of the more well-known companies who have offices around the world. So I wouldn't be able to tell you, Daniel, in how many countries Mars operates. I certainly know where I operate. I'm in the United Kingdom. There are offices in London as well as in Slough, and those are the offices where I tend to work from.
I'm myself, I'm not a huge candy person, but I have one sort of Achilles heel, which is peanut M&Ms, and I never do a road trip. I took my son and my daughter. She was a soccer player. My son was a baseball player. And even now, just recently, my wife and I were traveling to Montana into a beautiful national park. And I always have to have peanut M&Ms in the car because for some reason, it's the thing that keeps me sort of focused on the road is eating peanut M&Ms. So I buy a large bag, and that's how I do all my road trips.
I will remember that, and I think we will maybe hire you for a commercial in the future.
Yeah, how to road trip with peanut M&Ms, exactly. If you were to describe Mars in one sentence, how do you sort of wrap that into a sentence? What is the Mars company all about?
I would say Mars is a purpose-driven company with a collaborative culture.
And when you think of your role as the senior IP counsel at Mars, what would you describe as maybe some of the most difficult tasks associated with your role and that you have to face head on a regular basis?
Great question again. I think time pressure, we all face it, is something that is a regular thing at Mars as well. But if I were to think about the types of tasks and challenges, I would say potentially a global stakeholder management in cross-border deals or cross-border partnerships, or indeed complex IP disputes, also with retailers, for example, whom Mars works with as well. Those types of issues are both interesting and challenging as well in this role.
Maybe for the audience who's listening to us today, when you think about maybe your top three strategies to sort of fight online fraud. Are there 2, 3 things that come to mind in terms of the top strategies for you?
Sure. Yes, of course. And just for the audience, throughout the interview, the views that I expressed are obviously mine and not those of Mars. The top 3 strategies that come to mind for myself are prioritization. So we do have to prioritize really well, and we have to pick our battles in everything, but definitely when fighting online fraud, there's just too many things going on. You can't go after everything. Secondly, you have to choose the right technology, the right tech. There are several options out there, several companies and vendors. And I think it's incredibly important as the online actors get more and more sophisticated to use the right technology to track them down. And thirdly, it's about balancing resources, about balancing internal resources, human resources, external resources, and also the budget around what you do and how you do it and how you do it efficiently. So I would say these 3 things.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And Bence, when you think about like those 3 strategies you mentioned, how has that adapted at Mars, or as you've been there, how have you sort of adapted that strategy? Maybe when you started it was something else, and today, how do you think about that?
I think with online brand enforcement in general, it was first used to supplement the enforcement we've been doing otherwise. So rather than the main thing, the main direction, it was supplementing other enforcement efforts. Whereas now, today, global online brand enforcement is the cornerstone of what we do in enforcement in general. It is the main thing. Detect, investigate, and stop infringements at a large scale is what it is all about, and where we can achieve the highest impact.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, when you think about people who may take your packaging, or Lookalike and change that, that must be something that happens quite often for you. We see it obviously in a CPG, or is that challenge that you see sort of having to battle as well?
Yes, regularly. I think the more famous you are, the more you are going to be copied. And a lot of actors don't copy your brand name, but copy everything else around it. So the whole look and feel of your packaging. And we get that a lot as a company, as a brand-led company, if you will. And what we do about it is essentially have a very sophisticated protection strategy for the whole of the packaging, the distinctive elements of the packaging. We have a nuanced approach when it comes to how to tackle these issues. It'll depend a lot on where we are in the world, what country, the type of infringer we are dealing with. And perhaps most importantly, we should not be afraid to take aggressive action where needed.
Yeah, I agree. I think about your profession here as an IP lawyer, and one of the questions I was going to ask you is there a myth about IP lawyers that you would want to debunk? And of course, after learning about your rap skills, your comedy skills, etc., I already am thinking that you may not fit exactly into the same shoebox of IP lawyers. But is there anything that you could share initially that if you were to debunk a myth about IP lawyers like yourself, what would that be?
Those skills that you mentioned, Daniel, very kind of you to mention them again, but they are more dreams than actual skills. I think one of the things that comes to mind is that the myth that lawyers can be dull and boring, or at least more boring than people in other professions. I think I'd have to say we're a diverse bunch of people, and at least some of us are fun to hang out with. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I would agree. My last guest on the podcast was John Merles, who's head of risk operations for Lily Bank, which is an online banking system in the U.S. I asked him if he had a question about you that we should learn about you. And he wanted to ask you this question, which is, what are you currently doing to expand your own skill set and your own knowledge in this industry that you're in?
I try to expand my skill set by regularly attending trainings, seminars, conferences, following emerging trends and topics online, reading about them everywhere where I can find them. In general, always be alert and ready to develop myself, never be satisfied with what I've achieved, and just be curious and keep up with the trends.
Is there a go-to I don't know, journal or blog or something that you read regularly to keep up those particular skill set? Is there one that you tend to check out more regularly than others?
I think there's a couple. The Trademark Lawyer magazine, I keep up to date with what Marks as an organization is doing, a brand owner organization, as well as World Trademark Review and Managing IP, I should say. All of those have very good
Good,
resources.
good sources. Yeah, thank you. And then when you think about your career and you're speaking to a young person who's looking for advice on how to pursue a career similar to yours, what kind of things do you share with that person about thought process on how to manage their own upcoming career?
One of the things that comes to mind is to think globally and be ready to explore other countries, other continents, to instead of thinking locally or regionally, always think globally and be ready to take on a challenge that's somewhere else, perhaps, than not where you grew up. Secondly, a cliche but very true, work hard and never stop learning. And the third one for me is lead with passion and authenticity. Many people try to obviously fit in to where they are, but don't lose any of the passion and any of your authentic self in that process.
Yeah, no, I think that's super advice. And I think whether you want to be in your career path or almost any career path, certainly three sound principles, I think, for anyone to follow, regardless of their career path. Yes. When you think about yourself, was there someone who inspired you along the way that was sort of a mentor or an inspiration to you as you were moving forward in your career?
I would mention a couple of people from SBGK, the IP law firm in Budapest, Hungary. I would mention Aaron Laszlo and Péter Lukács, who have been sort of the dynamic duo, my two mentors when I first started practicing IP, and I learned a lot from them in very different ways. I hope they are listening to this now. And then I think in general, those colleagues, people of my profession, inspire me who excel in other things as well, not just IP, who have fun along the way, who are good business people, for example, very good in business, which I'm not very good at. Julius Stobbs comes to mind, who's a friend of mine and has built an incredible empire of a law firm and brand protection service. So his name comes to mind as well, certainly.
And Bence, my next guest at this point, Bence, I don't exactly know which person is following you. We have a couple people. We're just trying to work in the timing. But from a generic perspective, maybe my question is, Bence, what would you like to ask our next guest that will ask them to something extra to learn about them?
Sure. Yes, Daniel, I think I would love to ask her the following question. What is the achievement you're most proud of in your life?
That's a great question. And maybe if it's okay if I ask you, what is your greatest achievement that you've had?
Rookie mistake on my side because I haven't prepared an answer for this actually. I tend to think that personal achievements should prevail over work achievements in many ways. They often give more long lasting joy and happiness. And I'm certainly proud of some personal achievements as well as work achievements, but I wouldn't be able to pick one right now for you, Daniel. I'd have to disappoint you with that.
No disappointment. That's awesome. Now I want to just finish up our podcast, Bence, with 4 questions in 15 seconds. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Favorite music, band, or singer?
It'll have to be Tupac.
Tupac, very good. Favorite book?
Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Great. And if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I can't choose between a good curry or a pizza, so I would pick both.
All right, good. And then what is your go-to resource in order to keep up to date on brand protection?
I would pick Marks and the World Trademark Review.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Bence, for joining us. It was great to learn about your story and how you got here. And I think the cliffhanger of today's one day we'll bring you back for the COVID rap song.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And thank you to everyone who's listened to this podcast. And I'm making no promises, Daniel, about the rap song. Maybe one day live somewhere, but we will just have to wait and see if that happens.
Yeah, maybe a brand protection rap. That'll be your next thing, like a generic brand protection rap song.
Oh my gosh, I regret mentioning this already. We will see. We will
All
see.
right. Well, thank you.